I exposed my mother's true nature at her funeral, and my entire family destroyed me. The funeral director signaled it was time for family to speak. I stood up, walked to the front, and looked at the sea of black-clad mourners, expecting tearful tributes. Instead, I told them exactly who my mother really was. The chapel was suffocating, not from grief, but from the weight of lies hanging in the air like thick smoke. Everyone kept saying the same things. She was such a devoted mother, so caring and selfless. Those girls were so lucky to have her. Each word felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. My younger sister Natalie sat beside me, her jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscles working beneath her skin. We talked about this moment for years, in whispered conversations late at night when the house finally went quiet, when Mom's watchful eyes finally closed. We'd promised each other that if we ever got the chance, we wouldn't let the lie continue. When the funeral director asked if any family wanted to share memories, I felt Natalie's hand squeeze mine. This was it, the moment we'd both feared and needed in equal measure. I stood up, my legs shaking, and walked to the front of the chapel. 73 people stared at me, expecting tears and tender stories. My mother was not the woman you think you knew, I began, my voice steadier than I expected. She was not kind. She was not nurturing. What she was controlling. Every single aspect of our lives, from the time we woke up until the moment we were allowed to sleep, was monitored, criticized, and manipulated. The room shifted. I could feel the discomfort rippling through the pews like a physical wave. There were no bruises, no screaming matches, nothing you could point to and say, "That's wrong." That's what made it so perfect for her. She knew exactly how to make you feel worthless without ever raising her hand or her voice. It was in the way she'd look at you when you came downstairs wearing something she didn't approve of. The way she'd sigh, just loud enough for you to hear, when you spoke at dinner. The questions that weren't really questions. Are you sure you want to eat that? Don't you think you should study more instead of seeing friends? I just worry that you're not living up to your potential. My Uncle Mark, Mom's older brother, started to stand up, but I kept going. She read our journals, every single one. She'd go through our phones while we slept. She needed passwords to everything, our social media accounts, our email accounts, everything. She said it was because she loved us and wanted to protect us, but it wasn't love, it was ownership. She didn't have children, she had projects, things she could shape and mold and control until we were exactly what she wanted us to be. The funeral director looked panicked, glancing between me and the crowd, clearly unsure if he should intervene. When I got accepted to Stanford, do you know what she said? She cried. Not because she was proud, but because California was too far away. She said I was abandoning her, that I was selfish for choosing a school that would tear our family apart. She wanted me to go to the local state school so I could live at home. When I refused, she didn't speak to me for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of living in the same house with someone who pretended you didn't exist. Natalie stood up beside me. I hadn't planned for this, but I should have known she would have. We'd been in this together our whole lives. Mom loved control more than she ever loved us. We learned early that pleasing her was impossible because the goalpost always moved. If we got an A, why wasn't it an A+? If we made the team, why weren't we captain? Nothing was ever enough, because if we reached her standards, she'd lose her power over us. Aunt Patricia, Mom's younger sister, let out a sob. But whether it was grief or recognition, I couldn't tell. We don't know the difference between respect and fear anymore, Natalie continued. She blurred those lines so thoroughly that even now, standing here, part of me is terrified of what she'd do if she could hear this. And that's exactly the problem. A mother shouldn't be someone you fear. A mother shouldn't be someone whose passing feels like a prison door finally opening. Natalie's voice cracked slightly, but she pushed through. I hope wherever she is, she finally finds the peace she never allowed anyone else to feel. The peace she denied us every single day we lived under her roof. The silence that followed was deafening. You could hear the HVAC system humming, someone's watch kicking, the sound of fabric rustling as people shifted in their seats. Uncle Mark's face had gone from shocked to furious, deep red creeping up from his collar. "How dare you!" he exploded, standing up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Your mother was a saint. She sacrificed everything for you ungrateful, spoiled brats. She worked herself to the bone to give you every opportunity, and this is how you repay her memory? By standing up here and lying to everyone?" "We're not lying," I said quietly. "Get out!" Uncle Mark's voice bounced off the chapel walls. "Both of you, get out! If you can't show your own mother a shred of respect, you don't deserve to be here." Aunt Patricia was crying harder now, her face buried in her hands. I couldn't read her tears. Was she crying because we were lying, or because somewhere deep down, she knew we weren't? Dad hadn't moved. He sat in the front row, his face completely blank, staring straight ahead at Mom's casket. As Uncle Mark continued to rage, Dad simply stood up and walked out of the chapel. No words, no eye contact, just gone. "You should be ashamed," Uncle Mark was still going. "Your mother loved you more than life itself, and you're up here making her sound like some kind of monster. You're twisting everything because you're too selfish to see how good you had it." Other family members started murmuring, their faces ranging from shocked to disgusted to confused. Grandma Betty, Mom's mother, looked ancient suddenly, like she'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. She wasn't crying. She was just staring at us with this expression I couldn't quite read. Natalie grabbed my hand and we walked down the center aisle together. Every eye in that chapel followed us. I could feel their judgment like physical weight pressing down on my shoulders. Uncle Mark actually turned his body away as we passed his pew. Aunt Carla whispered something to the person next to her, covering her mouth with her hand like we couldn't see her doing it. Outside, the spring air felt shockingly cold after the stifling warmth of the chapel. Dad was standing by his car, not getting in, just standing there with his hands in his pockets, staring at nothing. "Dad?" I said softly. He didn't respond, didn't even acknowledge we'd spoken. After a long moment, he got in his car and drove away. The weeks that followed were exactly what we expected and somehow still worse than we had imagined. Uncle Mark sent a 3-page email detailing every way we'd failed as daughters and human beings. Cousins we'd grown up with blocked us on every social media platform. Aunt Patricia called once, crying, asking why we couldn't have just kept our mouths shut and let everyone remember Mom the way they wanted to. Dad moved through the house like a ghost. He spoke to us only when absolutely necessary, in clipped, cold sentences that felt like ice water. "Dinner's ready. Mail came. I'll be working late." The man who used to make terrible dad jokes and sing off-key while cooking had disappeared, replaced by this hollow shell who couldn't even look at us. Extended family stopped inviting us to gatherings. When Cousin Jennifer got engaged 3 months later, we didn't receive invitations to the wedding. Grandma Betty's birthday party happened without us. Christmas card lists suddenly didn't include our names. But here's the thing nobody tells you about telling the truth at funerals. Sometimes being the villain in everyone else's story is the only way to be honest in your own. Natalie and I are closer than we've ever been. We talk every day now. Not because we have to navigate Mom's moods together, but because we actually want to. We're both in therapy, unpacking years of what our therapist calls covert manipulation and emotional enmeshment. It's hard work. Some days I still hear Mom's voice in my head, questioning my choices, making me second-guess everything. But it gets quieter each month. Dad eventually came around. Sort of. 8 months after the funeral, he knocked on my apartment door with takeout from my favorite Thai place. We ate in silence for a while before he finally said, "I knew. Not all of it. But I knew she was hard on you girls. I told myself it was just her way of caring, that she wanted you to be strong." He paused, pushing pad thai around his plate. "I should have protected you. I'm sorry. It wasn't everything, but it was something. We're rebuilding, slowly. Would I do it again? Stand up at that funeral and tell 73 people the truth about the woman they'd come to mourn? Absolutely. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't performing for her. I wasn't carefully measuring my words against what would or wouldn't set her off. I was just honest. And yeah, it cost me relationships with family members who chose comfort over truth. But it gave me something more valuable. It gave me my voice back. The one Mom spent 24 years trying to silence. Update. 6 months later. I didn't expect to be writing an update to this, but some things happened that I thought you all might want to hear about. 3 weeks ago, Aunt Patricia showed up at my apartment unannounced. I almost didn't let her in. The last time we'd spoken, she'd been crying on the phone, begging us to apologize to the family and make things right. But she looked different, standing in my doorway. Smaller, somehow. Tired. "Can I come in?" she asked, and something in her voice made me step aside. We sat in my living room for a full 5 minutes in silence before she finally said, "Your grandmother is selling the house, your mother's childhood home." Patricia wanted me to go through some boxes in the attic, help decide what to keep. Paused, twisting her wedding ring around her finger. "I found journals, your mom's journals, from when she was young." My stomach dropped. She wrote about our mother, your Grandma Betty, page after page about how nothing was ever good enough, how she felt like she was constantly being watched, judged, measured against some impossible standard, how she promised herself she'd never be like that. Aunt Patricia's voice cracked. "But then later, when you and Natalie were little, she wrote about how she needed to make sure you girls didn't make the same mistakes she did, how she needed to guide you, protect you from yourselves. I watched her turn into the exact thing she swore she'd never become." She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo of a journal entry. Mom's handwriting, neat and controlled as always. "Emma cried today because I told her the drawing she made wasn't good enough for the refrigerator. I know I was harsh, but she needs to learn that the world won't accept mediocrity. If I don't push her, who will? I'm doing this because I love her." I stared at that photo for a long time. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. See? Proof. Mostly I just felt sad. Sad for Mom, sad for Grandma Betty, sad for the cycle that kept repeating itself. "I'm sorry," Aunt Patricia whispered. "At the funeral, I thought you were just being cruel. I didn't understand. But Mark called me last week, screaming because his daughter Rebecca told him she's moving across the country for a job and won't tell him where she's living. He couldn't understand why she'd abandon him like that. And I heard Mom's words coming out of his mouth. The same words our mother used to say. and I realized it's all of us. We all learned it from her, and some of us passed it on. She stayed for 2 hours. We talked about things I'd never known. How Grandma Betty used to make Mom stand in the corner for hours if her room wasn't perfectly clean. How Mom once got accepted to an art program in New York, but Grandma Betty forbade her from going, said it was impractical and selfish. How Aunt Patricia herself had eloped because she knew Grandma Betty would find something wrong with any wedding they planned. "You broke the cycle," she said as she was leaving. "It cost you, but you broke it. That took more courage than I've ever had." After she left, I called Natalie and told her everything. We cried together on the phone. Not sad tears exactly, but something more complicated. Relief mixed with grief, understanding mixed with anger. 2 days after Aunt Patricia's visit, Cousin Rebecca reached out, then Cousin Michael's wife, Emily, then 3 more cousins I hadn't heard from since the funeral. Quietly, privately, they started telling their own stories. How Uncle Mark controlled every aspect of Rebecca's life until she was 26. How Cousin David's mom still demanded daily phone calls and threw fits if he didn't answer immediately. How Cousin Jennifer's engagement almost fell apart because her mom tried to plan every detail of the wedding without asking what Jennifer actually wanted. It turns out our family was full of people who'd been controlled, manipulated, and made to feel small. But nobody had ever said it out loud before. Nobody had broken the silence. We started a group chat, 8 of us now, all cousins around the same age. We call it the disappointments as a joke, but it's become something real, a place where we can talk about the things our parents did that hurt us without someone immediately jumping in to defend them or tell us we're exaggerating, a place where we can be honest. Uncle Mark still won't speak to any of us. Grandma Betty sent a formal, typed letter saying she was deeply hurt by the family's betrayal of her memory and legacy. Some aunts and uncles have picked sides, drawn lines in the sand. Last month's family reunion was apparently split into 2 separate gatherings, one for Mark's side and one for the others, though nobody invited Natalie or me to either. But Dad has been coming around more. He joined Natalie and me for dinner last week and actually talked. Really talked, for the first time since Mom died. He admitted that he'd checked out emotionally years ago because it was easier than standing up to Mom, that he'd failed us by choosing peace over protection. He's in therapy now too, working through his own guilt and patterns. "Your mom used to tell me I was too soft, that the girls needed a firm hand or they'd grow up weak. I let her be the bad cop because I wanted to be the one you came to for comfort. But that just made me complicit, didn't it? I let her do all the damage because I didn't want to be the villain." He looked up at us, his eyes red. "You girls are stronger than both of us ever were. You knew the cost of speaking up, and you did it anyway." The most unexpected message came last month from someone I'd never met, Mom's college roommate. A woman named Diane, who'd seen my story after Cousin Rebecca shared it in a private Facebook group. She wrote me a long email about the woman she'd known in college, how my mom had been different back then, lighter, how she'd laughed more, dreamed bigger, how she wanted to be a photographer and travel the world. "She changed after graduation," she wrote. "She went home for a summer and came back different, quieter, more controlled. She told me her mother had helped her see reality and that she needed to focus on practical things. She stopped taking pictures, stopped talking about traveling. It was like watching someone slowly disappear into the person their family wanted them to be. I lost touch with her after that, but I always wondered what happened to the girl I knew." I showed the email to Natalie. We'd never seen any photographs our mom had taken. Never knew she dreamed of anything beyond the life she'd lived. It made everything more complicated. She wasn't just a villain in our story. She was a victim in her own. That doesn't excuse what she did to us, doesn't undo the damage, but it adds a layer of tragedy to the whole thing that's hard to sit with. Natalie is getting married next spring. Dad is walking her down the aisle. Uncle Mark and his family aren't invited. Neither is Grandma Betty. It's going to be small. Just the people who've chosen to see us, really see us, instead of the versions they wanted us to be. Aunt Patricia is coming. There were 5 of our cousins from the Disappointments chat. The wedding planner asked Natalie if she wanted to do anything special in memory of her mother, some kind of tribute or empty chair. Natalie just laughed, not meanly, but with genuine amusement. "The best tribute I can give my mother is building a life she would have hated. One where I make my own choices, set my own boundaries, and don't apologize for being happy." I'm working on that too. The freedom is terrifying sometimes. When there's no voice in your head telling you you're doing everything wrong, you have to figure out what right looks like on your own. I'm learning that I actually like bright colors, even though Mom always said they were too much. I'm learning that it's okay to be mediocre at things just for fun, that not everything has to be perfect or purposeful, that rest isn't laziness. Some family members will never forgive us for what we did at that funeral. They'll carry their version of Mom to their graves, and that's their choice. But for everyone else, For the cousins who've reached out, and the aunt who finally saw the truth, and the father who's trying to make amends, we created an opening, a space where honesty is possible. The funeral wasn't the end of our story. It was the beginning. The first time we chose truth over comfort, ourselves over expectation, healing over pretending. And yeah, it cost us, but it also freed us, not just from Mom, but from the whole family system that created her and tried to create us in her image. Would I do it again? Every single time. Because some silences aren't meant to be kept. Write what you think about this situation. Also, if you like this video, give a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the bell to receive notifications about the latest videos. See you next time. Bye-bye.